So welcome today's class, Root to Rise. So we're gonna spend a little time talking about grounding and how we feel grounded through our bodies and maybe taking a look internally as well. So in our physical practice, anytime we're practicing, whatever's touching the floor is our grounding spot. So right now we're sitting and we're grounded through our sit bones. So get comfortable, and I would encourage you to wiggle around a little bit. So move forward on your sit bones and move back on your sit bones and go right and left, and really see if you can find the completely neutral place where right and left sit bones are equally weighted and you're not too far forward or you're not too far back. So right in the center. Today is, I think it's Neil Armstrong's birthday today. And I just liked this quote, that mystery creates wonder, and wonder is the basis of our desires for understanding. So often when I would work with kids in school, I would pose the prompt, I wonder, ... question mark. So I'll pose that to you as we practice today. So I wonder what grounded means to you. And I wonder, and you can just create these things for yourself. I wonder what it would feel like to always feel grounded. And I wonder if I'm grounded, if I'm well grounded, does that allow me to feel lifted and expanded? So that's kind of what we're playing with today. So if it's comfortable for you, close your eyes down. Rest your hands lightly in your lap or on your legs. And take your awareness to your pelvis, to your sit bones, hips. And imagine that you are perhaps a tree with deep roots into the ground. Pull your lumbar spine, your lower back, slightly in towards midline. And allow your shoulder blades to move down and in towards your spine. Feel a broadness across your collarbones. Feel for the top of your skull reaching up towards the heavens without a lot of muscular effort. So see if this can happen. The lifting happens from the rooting. So you can keep going back to what's touching the floor and feeling that secure connection, and see if as you root, you're able to rise. Identify your pelvic floor. And in this seat, can you stack your rib cage, your diaphragm, over your pelvic floor without too much fussing around? Just feel for that stacking, diaphragm over pelvic floor. And then identify the soft palate of your mouth. So the roof of your mouth, the back of the roof of your mouth, and stack that over your rib cage. And then finally, in your mind's eye, find the dome, the top of your head, and stack that over everything else. So we have all these domes in the body. So the top of the head stacked over the soft palate over the diaphragm over the pelvic floor. And then here, we'll just do a few rounds of breath. And on the inhale, you could choose something. You could choose like a mountain. On the inhale, you could say, I am a mountain. On the exhale, I am strong and stable. Or on the inhale, you could say, I am a mighty tree. Exhale, roots connected, trunk rising. Just find something that works for you and go through 10 rounds of breath. Notice if you're tipping your chin up and see if you can keep your chin should be relatively parallel to the earth. And continue to lengthen your exhale. As you lengthen the exhale, can you feel more of the rootedness? And on the inhale, the lightness or the lifting. And then on your own time, just softly bring your gaze up and unwind your legs, and we'll come to our mat and come onto our backs. And take on your mat, put your body into the shape of an X. So the feet are wide, maybe wider than the corners of your mat. Arms up and wide. And feel the earth supporting you here for just a few minutes. Imagine that you are a tablecloth on a table. And there's a wrinkle in the middle of the tablecloth. And you're going to smooth out that wrinkle without touching the wrinkle, right? So you don't have to touch the wrinkle to smooth it out. Just imagine that you can smooth the wrinkle by adjusting feet, hands, head, shoulder blades, and get your body as smooth as possible resting on the floor. And then just allow yourself really to drop in. So one of the concepts we'll visit again and again in class today is really being friends with gravity. So let gravity have you here. Just let yourself and feel gravity holding you to the floor supporting you. So very little muscular effort right now. Great, and then we'll bring the arms down to the side, bend your knees, and take the soles of your feet to the floor. Knees bent, pointing up towards the ceiling. And we'll just begin to move through the spine with some pelvic tilts. So on your inhale, pull your pubic bone away from your navel. And on your exhale, draw your pubic bone back towards your navel. So we have a tilting of the pelvis forward and backwards. And go slow enough so that you might notice what feels a little easier for you. Is it easier for you to create the arch underneath your back as you pull your pubic bone away from your navel? Is it easier for you to go in the opposite direction? So we have a body, a signature, sort of a way that we tend to sit and stand and all those things. So if I were constantly tilting the pubic bone away from the navel, if that was my tendency, I would be shortening the muscles in my back. Yeah, and you feel that as you tilt your pubic bone away from navel, you shorten the muscles in your back. Conversely, if I tend to tilt the other way, right, I will shorten the muscles in my abdominals. So neutral is where we'd like to live most of the time. We all have a tendency. Now, it's sort of a chicken and egg thing, so maybe we have short abdominals and that causes us to tilt pubic bone back towards navel. Maybe we have shortened back muscles and that causes us to tilt in the opposite direction. But just a few more times, rolling through those pelvic tilts and feeling for which one feels more accessible and easy to you. Right. And then come to neutral. Just rest for one breath, relax everything. Okay, and now just pick your feet up off the floor 1 inch, just 1 inch. Pick your feet up off the floor 1 inch. Feel what muscles have to engage to do that. And now set your feet back to the floor and really move through all 4 corners of your feet, inside and outside of the heels, big toe mound, pinky toe mound. Come to an even setting down of your feet. And then see how pressing into your feet or having your feet completely on the earth allows you to relax. Just feel that for a minute. Because we're going to stand up shortly and we want the same feeling. Not too much muscular effort. Great. Now let's just separate the feet a little bit and bring your arms to goalpost. And you can let the knees rock back and forth, just opening up through your hips. And go at a speed that feels nice for you. You can stop on either side and hold that. Or you can just continue the movement, just relaxing through Soles of the feet are on the floor and the knees are just moving back and forth in this windshield wiper action. Next time your knees are to the left, reach the right arm long and take your gaze to the right hand. And then inhale back to center, knees to the right, reach the left arm long, gaze to the left hand. And just do that little pattern a few times again. And do it at a speed that feels skillful for you and supportive in your body. And then come back to center and then pull your knees in towards your chest and take each hand on top of the same knee. And then just open through your legs, go wide on the inhale with your knees and then pull in on the exhale. Just move in that way for a minute, opening the inside seam of the leg and the groin. You might take it in the opposite direction, moving through your hips. And then set your feet back down to the floor. Just rest for one breath. Feel your feet completely touching the floor and how that allows you to relax. So we do call this position of comfort, right? And then extend your both legs up towards the ceiling and point your toes. And then flexing through your knees, flex through your ankles at the same time. And if you can, just sort of gaze as you extend up towards the ceiling, point the toes. And as you flex at your knees, flex your ankles. And just see if you're, look at your legs and see if you can keep your legs parallel to one another, thighs parallel to one another, and tracking over the feet. Be a little engagement at the core as you do this. So, and then again, a speed that works for you. If you want to speed it up a bit, bend and extend. On the extension, you point the toes, and on the flexion of the knees, you flex at the ankles. And then switch it up. So as you point up towards the ceiling, you flex the feet. So the legs go straight, you flex at the ankles, toes back towards shins, and then as you bend your knees, you point your toes. So we're just warming up some of the joint spaces here before we stand up. And then we've been working with feet quite a bit. So the next time your legs are extended, just take your feet around in some circles. So circling at the ankles in one direction. And then the opposite direction. And then soles of the feet towards one another, like you're in Baddha Konasana, and then soles of the feet out away from one another. So inversion and eversion with the feet. Yeah, good. And then take your feet and slowly set your feet back to the floor. Slowly, slowly, slowly touch down. Relax your muscles and just feel your feet underneath you. And now slowly straighten one leg and then the other. Pull your toes back towards your shins. And feel for pressing through the big toe mound and the pinky toe mound. And then imagine that you have a circle drawn on your heel. A circle drawn on your heel. Press through the inside of the circle a little bit more strongly than the outside of the circle. Press through the outside of the circle a little more strongly than the inside. So it's a very, very subtle movement of the feet. And I want you just to notice if one of those actions feels more comfortable to you. So if you're pressing through the insides of the heels more strongly, is that your tendency, or pressing through the outside of that circle? So it's like you have a circle on the bottom of your heel and you're pressing on the outside or the inside. And then come to a neutral place where you're pressing right to the center of the heels. Toes are pulled back towards shins. And if you want to take a look, you could look there and say, oh yeah, my pinky toe side is pulled back, my big toe side, they're pretty even. Or one side is pulling more strongly than the other. Great. And then somehow you're going to come up to seated, so you could cross at the ankles or take your hands behind your legs and rock yourself up momentarily to the seat. And then we're going to come to standing. So the first thing we'll do is just come to Tadasana. So standing in Tadasana, you can look at your feet for a few minutes, and then I want you to bring your gaze away from your feet and just use your proprioception here. So come forward onto your toes, balls of the feet, so the heels are just barely lifted off the floor, and then go back onto the heels and lift the toes. So forward and backward, and find the neutral position. Same thing now, weight to the outside of your feet, weight to the inside of your feet, which feels like your tendency more. See if you can find center. Okay? Great. Now, with your weight spread across the metatarsal arch, that would be the big toe mound and the pinky toe mound, and your weight even on your heels, lift your toes off the floor. Okay, if you can, look down at your feet and see how that lifts the inner arch of your foot. Okay, and then relax your toes back down. Now, arch of the feet, that's the first dome in our body. Line your pelvic floor over the arch of your feet. See if you can just do it without looking at anything. So now line the diaphragm, rib cage, over the pelvic floor. And then line up the soft palate over the diaphragm. And then line up the dome of the head over the soft palate. Now, less effort in the legs, just feel the stacking of your bones. And in this position, keep relaxing, keep giving less effort, and see if you feel a lifting through your upper body. Less effort, just stack the bones. Maybe you have a tendency to rock forward or backwards, or have the head forward, okay? So just feel into those places. The sheath of the body, and then maybe going internally too, what's needing to work internally. So those two planes need to work together. Now, bring your awareness to your eyes. Most of us only stand as tall as our eyes. There's a bunch of more space there, okay? So bring your attention to the space between your eyes and the top of your head. Now see if you can be as tall and as lifted as the crown of your head. So don't limit your height just to your eyes, but feel the height all the way through the crown of your head. Beautiful. Now from here, just slowly, you can take your hands to your hips, bend your knees and track your knees over your ankles. Bend and then extend back up. Bend the knees. You could take a look if you want and see if your legs are staying parallel to one another, not splaying out to the side, and extend. We want the knees tracking over the ankles. So now, as we continue to bend a little deeper, we'll set the sit bones back. So knees tracking over ankles, set the sit bones back, and we'll just go through a few times, feeling for each time you come back to Tadasana, you stack all of those domes. So bending, set the sit bones back, and notice whether you remain in contact in the whole foot, right? So the knees come forward, the sit bones go back, and then extending. Notice what happens with your head as you do this. Do you jut the head forward? So just an awareness. Catch yourself moving maybe too far forward, not offsetting with the sit bones. Good. The next time that you drop your weight back, put all your weight or most of your weight into your right foot and set your left foot back in Warrior One. Right. Pressing through your feet, find the outside edge of your back heel. Find the outside edge of your back heel. Inhale to reach your arms up. Good. On your exhale, you'll draw your arms back behind you and reach forward with your upper body. On your inhale, you'll sweep your arms back up. Feel for the stacking. Even though the legs are separated, there's still this stacking of the bones, stacking the domes and the bones. Good. So we'll come forward on the exhale, arms come back. And on the inhale, sweep the arms up. And just repeat that a few times. If you wanted it to be a little bit more muscular work, you could bring the arms forward on the coming forward on the exhale, and then on the inhale, sweep the arms up. Otherwise, you can just come forward and bring the arms behind you, like you're going to launch. Great, and then we'll come back and rest and with the arms up. Look down at your front leg, make sure your knee is tracking over your ankle. And then bring your hands to your hips and take your weight forward. Walk yourself forward or bend forward, sliding your back leg up, 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 up. As you straighten the front leg, bring the back leg up to 90 degrees. Level your hips. Now, even though you only have one foot on the floor, can you feel an even stepping, so an even standing? Stack your pelvis over the arch of the standing foot. Stack your diaphragm over your pelvic floor. Stack your soft palate over your diaphragm. Find that space between eyes and the dome of the head. Lift through there and stack over your soft palate. Good, and then release. Take both feet to the floor. You might work through the hips a little bit if you're a little sore there. Good, and we'll take the other side. So we'll start just by bending into our knees, tracking knees over ankles. And now take your weight into the opposite foot, lifting and stepping back into Warrior One. Back leg, you can, if you want to really feel the whole foot of the back leg connecting, it helps to bend that leg and press into the outer heel in particular, and then re-straighten. Same thing. We'll inhale and bring the arms up. We'll exhale and fold forward, bring the arms back, like we're launching, or forward, or out to the side. Whatever you want to do with your arms is fine. We're just coming into the front foot. And then inhale, bring your weight evenly to both feet. So really in standing postures, back leg is super important. And then forward on the exhale. On the inhale, sweep the arms up. And then exhale, arms come back, torso forward. Inhale, press and sweep the arms up. Inhale, sweep the arms back, torso forward. Inhale, reach towards the ceiling, pressing into both feet equally. Now hands to hips. As you hinge forward, you can hinge forward. You could take one step if that works for you, or you could slide your back foot, coming full weight into the standing leg, lift the other leg to 90 degrees. Now, make those little adjustments. Line your pelvic floor up over the arch of the standing leg. Diaphragm over pelvic floor. Soft palate over diaphragm. Find the space between your eyes and the top of your head, lifting there, lining the dome of your head so everything is stacked. Good. And then release. Bring both feet together. Come back to Tadasana. Take a few breaths here, relaxing so that you're just using the stacking of your bones to stand in Tadasana. There'll be minimal muscular effort. Okay, and now we'll go back to the first side. So bending the knees, track your knees over your ankles. Put your weight into for me, it's my right leg. For you, it might be your left, but the first side you used. And then step the opposite foot back, warrior one again. Bend through the back leg and set the whole foot down, re-straighten. Inhale the arms up. Exhale as you come forward. You'll come forward. We're going to do any kind of variation of warrior three that you like. So your back foot might be touching the floor. You might have your back leg extended, front leg straight, arms out to the side. Arms could be at your heart center. As you straighten the front leg, lift the back leg. Arms could be out in the front. Feel for, even though we're in this shape, we're still stacking in some way. We're still stacking over that arch of the foot. And then sweep the bent leg back up, hands to hips, stack pelvis over arch of foot, stack diaphragm over pelvis, stack soft palate over diaphragm. Externally rotate the top leg and place that foot into Vrksasana, tree pose. Either against the calf, resting on the top of the foot of the standing leg, or pressed into the inner thigh. Now, find, yes, there's muscular effort here, but see if stacking the bones and really finding your grounding allows you to lift through the upper body, through the heart space across the collarbones, and especially that space between the eyes and the top of the head. Release your foot to the floor, And shake out the other leg or whatever you need to do before we move to the other side. Tadasana. Bending through your knees, tracking knees over ankles, sit bones go back as knees bend. Now take the opposite side, step back into Vira-1 on this side. Bending the back leg, really press into the outer heel and then re-straighten the back leg. Good, and then we'll inhale the arms up and we're coming forward into any variation of Warrior 3 that works for you. So that could look like hands on hips as you lean forward, the back toes touch the floor, front leg straightens. That could be your Warrior 3. You might have the legs slightly lifted, hands on hips. You could have your hands at prayer, and you could lift the back leg as much as possible, coming parallel as much as possible, parallel to the floor with your upper body. Any variation of that is fair game, and if you fall out, just start over. Notice your tendency, inside or outside of the foot. And then sweep the non-standing leg up to 90 degrees and stack yourself again. Pelvic floor over arch of standing foot. Diaphragm over pelvic floor. Soft palate over diaphragm. Crown the head lifting. Externally rotate the lifted leg and set that foot into Vrksasana. Hands can be on the hips. Hands could be at your heart center or spread in the big X. You decide what feels nice to you and allows you to stack and lift. Grounding through the one standing foot. And then release that foot, both feet to the floor, perhaps moving through your hips a bit. And then come back to Tadasana. Find Tadasana first. Notice your tendency when you step into the pose. Are you on the outsides of your feet, the insides of your feet? Forward or backward on the feet? Good. Now lift your toes again and see the arch or feel for the arch activated. That's the first dome in the body. We want that arch to be activated. You could rest the toes back down. Feel for the pelvic floor lined up over the arch of your feet. Diaphragm over pelvic floor. Soft palate over diaphragm. And then increase the space between your eyes and the dome of your head. And now inhale, sweep your arms up. Exhale, bend your knees slightly, fold through center, and come into a forward fold. Inhale, halfway. Exhale, fold, hands to the floor, step back, downward facing dog. Now we ground through the feet and we ground through the hands. So put your weight into the outside edges of your hands and feel all the way up the outside of the arm is activated. Then take the rest of the fingers down to the floor. So the whole hand is in the game and the outer arms are activated in this downward dog. Inhale to come forward into the high plank. Press the upper back towards the ceiling. Press the hands into the floor and press the floor away. And draw your navel up and in. Great. On your next inhale, start to lift your hips until it pulls you back into downward facing dog. Again, in your downward facing dog, lift the insides, so the thumb, the pointer finger, lift those off the floor and press into the outer two fingers and the outer edge of your palm. And feel how that activates the outer arms. Now set all your fingers down. Head resting between the biceps. Press the floor away with your hands. Beautiful. And then inhale to come forward, high plank. And then from here, either through chaturanga or dropping the knees to the floor, lower yourself all the way down to the floor. Good. And then rest for one breath, hands together, forehead onto the back of your hands. Take a resting 2 breaths here. Okay, so now bring your arms alongside your body. So now we're grounded through the tops of the feet, pubic bone, the pelvic area, okay, the legs. And so we're gonna get this lift by grounding through all those places. So really press the tops of your feet into the floor, really press your pubic bone into the floor, and see how that draws the tailbone. Doesn't tuck the tailbone, but draws it down towards the heels. So pressing there, lift your shoulder tops, lift your head, lift your chest. Keep grounding, especially through the pubic bone. Now you can lift your legs as well. Gaze is just off the front of your mat. Arms can stay in this position, or you could bring your arms to a T or out into the X position. If you come forward, you really have to concentrate on pressing so that you can continue to lift. So wherever you are, lower back down to the floor and softly turn one cheek or temple to the floor. You can rock your hips back and forth slightly, just to give yourself some relief there. And then turn and rock. One breath on the other side. Come back to center and take your forehead to the floor. And now press into your pubic bone. Your glutes will engage a bit as you draw your tailbone down towards your heels. Press there, pull the shoulder tops up and draw the shoulder blades down and in towards midline. Lift your arms, lift your head, lift your legs. Spiral the inner leg towards the ceiling. Keep pressing, keep grounding to lift. Can you make it easier? And then just bend the elbows, bring your hands underneath your shoulders, come up through table, take your time, and then draw your hips back to child's pose. Take a few breaths in child's pose here. And then inhale up to all fours. Okay, now hands are a little forward of the shoulders or right underneath, knees underneath hips. Put the weight into the outer pinky ring finger and then feel the outer arms engage, then set the rest of your fingers down. Press into the floor, press the floor away. Okay, so our grounding now is through the hands and the knees. Inhale, lengthen the space between sternum and navel, really stretching through the upper body, lifting your gaze. And exhale, round into your back body pressing hands into the floor, pressing knees into the floor, and then continue that pattern, just the cat-cow pattern, but think about lengthening the space between sternum and navel, and then rounding and really lengthening the space across your back body. Feel solid underneath your hands and your knees. And then coming to neutral, we'll take the left leg long, lift the left leg, lift the right arm. So really root into the left hand, root into the right thigh, or right knee, right shin. And then we'll bring those together, knee and elbow together on the exhale, and inhale, lift and lengthen. Couple times on this side. Inhale, lift and lengthen. Exhale, draw everything in. Good. And then place your right hand back down your left knee. And do 2 cat-cows to neutralize through your hips and spine. Landing back to neutral, pressing into your hands. Feel some broadness across your back. And then take the other leg long. I like to turn my toes under momentarily and stretch that calf. And then lift from the strength of your back. Reach opposite hand out. This side might be a little more challenging. Inhale, we'll bring everything long, and the exhale, bring your knee and your elbow together. Keep rooting through the hand on the floor, the knee on the floor, so that you can lift as you extend. Exhale brings everything together. And one more time. And set your hand back down, set your knee back down. And then even though we're not standing, imagine that your knees were your feet. Pelvic floor lined up over the knees. Press into your hands. 2 cat-cows to neutralize things. 2 cat-cows. And then dropping your hips back, come back to the child's pose. Keep your arms extended here. Tense your fingers. See if you can rest your whole upper body on your bent knees and draw your tailbone long. It might feel nice to move your head. I don't have my head on the floor here. I'm just moving my head back and forth, opening up through my neck. Draw the shoulder blades down and in to give yourself space in your neck. And then bring your arms alongside your body in full balasana, forehead to the floor. Bring your hands back to forward, come up to table, and then come to a seat. Okay, we'll take the left leg long and we'll bring the right leg in a sort of Baddha Konasana shape. Okay, so I think seated postures in some ways can be the hardest place to find that neutral grounding. So feel the evenness of your sit bones. We'll take the right hand beside the right thigh, press into that shin, that's your grounding, as you lift and come into a side stretch. So the left leg is long and I'm pressing into the heel. Maybe some of you can get the sole of your foot to the floor if your ankle works that way. And then release back down. And we'll just stretch over with the left hand and come into a side bend in the opposite direction. Okay, we'll do that a few times. So right hand comes back up and sets beside the right thigh. Press into that shin and lift. And then settle your hips back down. Reach out with the left hand just to the top of your foot and open in that direction. And just make this just a nice sort of flowing vinyasa, feeling the lift. Now, you might be able, as you press into that shin, you might be able to actually spin your heart towards the ceiling a bit. And see, play with how, when you're grounded through your bottom leg, even though it's bent, you're grounded through the bottom leg and to some extent the extended foot. See how that allows you to be light in the upper body, light in the chest. And then we'll come to sort of a neutral position with both legs long. And here again, stack, find a neutral sitting. So neutral on your sit bones. Thinking about pelvic floor stacked over the feet that are out, but imagine you're standing on them still. Diaphragm over pelvic floor, soft palate over the diaphragm, and dome of the head over the diaphragm. And then we'll take the other side. So now left leg comes in, right leg extended. And as you move through the same vinyasa, see if this side feels more comfortable, less comfortable. So left hand comes to the side of the left leg, you press up onto your shin and reach out and over. And then slowly drop your hips, reach the right arm out, and come into a side bend in the other direction. And that's the little flow. Really grounding and stacking to lift the upper body. So it is said that we practice, that our practice is we ground through the bottom of the trunk, right? And we lift up through above the pelvis. At the trunk and the arms, that's the lifting. So there's a grounding and lifting. And if we turn it upside down, which we won't today, but you could play with that if that's in your practice, handstand or forearm stand. It's the same thing. We're just grounding through the arms, hands, shoulders, right? And lifting the lower body up. Good. And then we'll come back to the wide leg spread. Sit up nice and tall, press through evenly through your sit bones. Feel the diaphragm, feel the pelvic floor stacked over your imaginary little teeny legs that are reaching down to the floor. Diaphragm over pelvic floor. Soft palate over the diaphragm. So many of us, and I do it too, we protrude our head forward. So see if you can line the head up right over the rest of the spine. Your head is really lined up over your tailbone. And then bringing the legs together in Dandasana. Okay, you can internally rotate your thighs here and draw the low back in. Now feet come to Tadasana feet. So pull the pinky toe side back just as strongly as the big toe side. Now, can you take the effort that you're exerting and cut it in half? So you're grounded through your hip bones. The spine is long and straight. You're lifted through your chest. Less effort. Inhale. And fold. Just do what works for you. So it might be right here. Just a fold, keeping length in the back. Some of you might be able to go all the way to your feet, or put a couple blocks on the ends of your feet and make your legs even longer. And now with each inhale, feel for lifting through the heart space, through the chest, and then the exhale is a little bit deeper fold. Notice if you go over to one side, keep your weight even on your sit bones. So the inhale expands to the chest, and the exhale, you can attempt to fold a little deeper. Let it be less muscular effort and more of feeling the support of your grounded seat. And then we'll come slowly back up, bending your knees, setting the soles of your feet to the floor. Bring your hands behind you, fingers pointing out to the side or back. Probably out to the side is most accessible. And then just press into hands and feet and lift, reverse table. Pressing into the hands and the feet, heart space lifted, hips lifted. And then lower your hips to the floor. And you could take a little balance here if you wanted, but then we'll lower all the way down to the floor. Coming back into that big X shape. And now notice if you've got a wrinkle in your tablecloth, and see what you can do to adjust to pull that wrinkle out. Organizing everything together here. And then once you have everything nice and smooth, let all your effort go and drop into Shavasana. So let the effort in your face go, in your jaw. You could press into the back of your head and tuck your shoulder blades under a little bit more. So your whole shoulder, each shoulder blade, the entirety of the shoulder blade is pressing into the floor. Feet are falling out to the sides. If you close your eyes, can you feel your hands begin to soften? Soften your hands from the inside out. Feeling the pulsation and vibration of the hands. Let your belly be soft. And here, if you wanted to, you could play with that, bending your knees again and just setting the feet to the floor as a way to really support you. Knees could come in. This is a nice way to rest as well. You might have to readjust the wrinkle. So Rilke said, this is a quote from Rilke, If we surrendered to Earth's intelligence, if we surrendered to Earth's intelligence, we could rise uprooted like trees. And I think that really part of the call of our practice is that we find our rooting, we find our grounding so we can rise up, because we're called to rise up in so many ways, not just for our own personal benefit, but for the benefit of all those around us. And I think that is the call of the yogi. If we surrendered to Earth's intelligence, we could rise uprooted like trees. So you can come back to a seat if you'd like to, and if you want to stay in Shavasana, of course you can. And when we come back to the seat, there's some stillness, but there's movement in stillness. There's stillness and movement. Find that balance for yourself. And then bringing your hands in some gesture of prayer to your heart center, and just reflecting momentarily on what it is that you need to ground. So we're talking metaphysical now. What helps you ground? What keeps you stable, especially right now, so that you might rise up and be your best human? May the merit of our practice, may the work that we put in here really encourage all beings, ourselves and all those who we touch. We encourage that hidden rising up, that brilliance that we all have. It is our divine birthright. Namaste.